welcome to autoimmunity.in. Our mission is to be the online support of choice for people with autoimmune illnesses and their caregivers. This platform aims to connect people, motivate them to share their updates of daily lives, and inspire each other through their positive stories. India today has few independent platforms for specific autoimmune illnesses, and due to this, we have focused on being the difference that by building awareness for these set of illnesses, we want to generate interest towards these illnesses and also the people who get affected by them. We want to motivate the desire to build empathy for these people, as well as we want to facilitate with resources to manage the illness better. Autoimmunity Expert is a series of interviews with experts to simplify different autoimmune illnesses. We are joined today by someone I know for many years and who has been my champion in managing my autoimmune illness. Today, we will be simplifying type 1 diabetes with Dr. Shalini Pandya. Dr. Shalini is an MBBS from Baroda Medical College and an MD in internal medicine from NHL Medical College, Ahmedabad. She has done her senior residency in Department of Endocrinology from SGPGI, which is the renowned Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute in Lucknow. She was an assistant professor in PS Medical College in Anand, and today she has a successful private practice for the last 20 years. She is also in addition attached to the Sterling Hospitals in Ahmedabad. She is greatly interested in diabetes, and her single focus, as I personally know, is to provide better care and quality of life to her patients. Hello, Dr. Shalini Pandya. Good to have you with us on Autoimmunity Expert. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time.
Hello, Neetu. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Great. Thank you for inviting me to your forum. I hope I can shed some light on type 1 diabetes.
To begin, we all claim to know about diabetes in general. It's a common illness that we understand, we speak about regularly. But type 1 diabetes is slightly different. It's an autoimmune illness. Can you help us understand, maybe we can take a step back and understand what exactly is autoimmunity according to you?
Let's, to understand autoimmunity, let's divide autoimmunity word into two parts. Auto means self. Immunity means the immune response or the resistance power of our body against a bacteria or viral which comes in the body and they attack it, and most of the times we don't generate a disease or an infection.
Right.
But in certain individuals who have some genetic predisposition, these environmental factors trigger a response of immune response in such a way that this immune response, instead of acting on the virus or the bacteria, starts destroying other cells of the body. For example, if they attack your skin, you get psoriasis. If they attack islet cells or beta cells of pancreas, it's diabetes. Right. So if they attack your joints, it becomes arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. If they attack your thyroid, it becomes autoimmune thyroiditis. So this is what is autoimmunity.
You mentioned a little bit about type 1 diabetes. Why is type 1 diabetes diagnosed as an autoimmune illness specifically?
In type 1 diabetes, basically in certain individuals, what happens is there is destruction of the beta cells of pancreas, which are known to produce insulin. Now, insulin is something which we need for the metabolism carbohydrates. Deficiency of these insulin in the body leads to diabetes. Now, in type 1 diabetes, what we know till now, though we are still not very clear about the pathology, in most of the patients, there is an autoimmune element. But I'm saying most of them. Rest of them, we are not still sure. Right. So once this autoimmunity doesn't happen overnight, it takes years to decades to happen. And once the islet cells are destroyed, the beta cells are destroyed, the patient gets insulopenia. That is deficiency of insulin in the body. So once they have any carbohydrate in their body, the glucose doesn't get more metabolized. And this is what is called type 1 diabetes.
Right. Okay. So we also know something called type 2 diabetes. What is the difference between type 1 and type 2 specifically?
In type 1 diabetes, the beta cells are not producing any insulin at all.
Right.
While in type 2, they are producing insulin, but there is a resistance to that insulin. That means that insulin is not able to work. That mostly happens in obese people with central obesity. So what we see usually is type 1 is more in early years of life. While what you see majority in above 45, 50 years of age is because of obesity and insulin resistance, and that is called type 2 diabetes.
Right. So the one we generally see in maybe our seniors or in our age group also, and now that we are also in our respective 40s, this is typically the type 2 diabetes, which is the more commonly generally spoken about type 2 diabetes, whereas type 1 specifically is the one which is an autoimmune, and it means that the pancreas completely does not produce any insulin, and that's the reason why it is more called an autoimmune illness, because that's the kind of support that one would need, which is the so what is insulin? Is it a
Excuse me there,
yeah.
because the wrong message should not go.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
in certain autoimmune disease, what happens is young adults between 20 to 40 years still get diabetes, and
Right.
that is autoimmune, and that is type 1 diabetes.
Right.
That is not necessarily, so when you are 40, you get a diabetes, does not necessarily mean that you are getting a diabetes, which is type 2.
Right.
Here, the process of autoimmunity takes longer than the usual, and these individuals might develop diabetes at the age of 20 to 40.
Right.
Again, because of the destruction of the beta cells.
Right.
So these people usually are thin, lean, have some genetic predisposition, or have other autoimmune diseases.
Right. So I think we can simply say then that there is no definition as such of when an autoimmune illness can be detected in your body or can start manifesting, as well as there are no preconditions to say that type 1 is only in younger people or in older people, or only type 2 is in older people. This is a general thing that you're saying in terms of the kind of pool of patients that come in. Yeah, I appreciate.
Less than 40 years, I would actually, if the diabetes happens less than 40 years of age, I would like to do the latent autoimmune diabetic.
You would like to check for the autoimmune. So that's what distinguishes it at that stage. So if I was to understand, we all, again, as I said, there are so many understandings that we have. We say that, oh, so a person is has diabetes, so he has to take insulin. Now, what is this insulin component that we're talking about? Is it a synthetic material? Is it what is it?
Insulin basically is a hormone which is produced by beta cells of the pancreas.
Right.
In type 1 diabetes, as I told you previously, there is insulopenia. There is no insulin being produced. So you have to actually replace it from outside.
Correct.
With the time, initially in 70s, 80s, we used to make insulin from the pigs and the cows, and that was injected, right? Subsequently, now human insulins are available, and those are actually obsolete, the older ones.
Right.
And we have better insulins, more physiological, similar to what you and I produce. These are very good. And they actually, once you give them, they basically work as similar as what an insulin does in you and me, my body.
Right. Another myth that a lot of people, or these preconceived notions that we have, is that if I have diabetes, I can't have sweets. Whether it is in type 1 diabetes, I can't have sweets. Or also another thing that people tend to assume is because I have diabetes, now life is sort of going to be in and out of hospitals. What do you have to say about that?
Preferably no sweets, but once in a while you should have them. And there is something called exchange.
Okay.
Exchange, that means if I know I'm going to have a pastry today or maybe a cake today, I'm supposed to reduce half or one roti from my diet.
Right.
Whatever I'm going to, I have to do it as an exchange. I can't have the whole meal and eat the sweet also.
Right.
So that is what, because then you can always, so the people who have type 1 diabetics for years together actually know when to increase their insulin dose by 4 units and eat up the sweets, right?
So they learn to self-manage this on their own.
Yeah. Some of them are even better than us.
Amazing. But that is not something that any doctor would recommend at any point in time. It is just that, yeah, it is just that from experience, you know that your body responds this way. So you tend to learn how to manage it yourself. But of course, the idea.
The best thing is to exchange the food.
Okay, correct.
And
what about this thing about, now that I have type 1 diabetes, I'm going to spend a lot of time in hospitals only? Or, life is going to be about doctors in hospitals only?
No, it's not true actually. Their life is actually similar to what you and I live. Right. If you control your sugars well, if the first thing is to accept the disease. Once the acceptance is there, it's easy. Once you accept that you will have to take 3 to 4 times insulin, you have to maintain regular diet, regular lifestyle, you can do wonders in life. For example, if I can take some time and give you some examples, Wasim Akram, the fastest bowler, is a type 1 diabetic. Right. Lucky Ali is a type 1 diabetic. Kamla Hassan is a type 1 diabetic. Right. Nick Jonas, Priyanka Chopra, we know her as Priyanka Chopra, is a type 1 diabetic. So they have actually achieved a lot in their lives. Right. And they're still very well. We see them, they are physically fit also. Absolutely. So it's not so true. The idea is to just accept the disease, do whatever needs to be done, and continue with your life.
How? You talked about a lot of celebrities or renowned people who are successful in their field of work. And one doesn't necessarily carry this badge, that I'm a type 1 diabetes patient and I can't live life normally. But how about in India? What kind of statistics can you share? Throw a little bit of light as to how much or how pervasive is type 1 diabetes in patients in India, and is being detected as an autoimmune illness?
So it's almost 8.9% incidence in India. Right. And in world over, it is between 8 to 15%. Scandinavian countries have it almost at 15%. Wow. Yeah, but I think it is detected early. It's just that the denial phase, but that is true for any chronic illness in India, Absolutely. And the acceptance of the patient of the disease, of the family also, is very low. Right. So it almost a year or two for them to educate them, to tell them, no, the Ayurvedic homeopathy is not going to work. This is insulin. You will require the injections and you will require it 4 times a day. Right. But I think it's the acceptance where the problem is. Right. But once it is done, I have, if I can take your time a little, I remember, since you asked me about the normal public, what happens to them. I remember almost 2 years back, a girl came in. And she was 18, 19, detected diabetic for type 1 diabetes for a year or so, poor glycemia, that is poorly controlled sugars, and her mother was very anxious, very overbearing. Mm. And she kept on asking me, grilling me about the questions and everything. And this girl has just stepped into college, her graduation, she did it. It took me 6 months and a year to explain to them, and then the glycemia was fine. We changed her lifestyle. I talked to her teachers and everything. Then she went on to do an MBA. And the next time she came in, she tells me that I have finished my MBA. I got a job in an MNC and I have a boyfriend. I want you to talk to my boyfriend now. Right. I called both of them, counseled the pros and the cons, where the problems can be and cannot be. And I'm happy to say that she is working. She's a type 1 diabetic who is working, is a professional, full-time worker, is a mother of a 5-year-old kid. So everything can happen once you accept it. Right. The girl was not so, resistant to the diagnosis as the family was. Right. I think it's the social dynamic situation in our country. One, we are fortunate, since we live in metros, to be able to have access to good medical support. That, like yourself, who understands the social impact as well as the medical impact on a particular situation once the patient is diagnosed. Because you're so right when you say that once the patient has accepted, then their support system also equally has to accept it. Because if they are anxious, there is no way that the person themselves can feel positive about their life, because as it is, they're going to be struggling with whatever emotions, as well as the complications and the toxicity of the medicines over some time, and the change in lifestyle. There are at so many levels it gets affected.
But this is an amazing, and a very inspiring story that you have shared of a very real life situation. And
A middle class and a middle class family, with a middle class values and dreams,
absolutely.
which are
Yes, and of a teenage girl. Again, she was at a very important juncture of her life that was any which case going to go through a lot of different things through the situation, and then to have this best friend become suddenly a part of her life, and it's a lifelong companion. You have to learn how to deal with it. But this is an amazing story where if diagnosed at the right time with the right kind of support system, as well as the capability and education and awareness to understand that this can be managed, and then never to lose hope, to
yes,
to
yeah,
just say ki this is part of life, and to build your life around it. It doesn't have to define you, but it can definitely be a positive part of your life, because even though if it is there, it doesn't really matter. That's amazing. So this gives us a lot of hope, um, you know uh, sort of as to how patients can live life to their fullest. uh, in a typical diabetes type 1 patient, what other conditions should they look out for? Is it typical that if I get diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, in like we have observed other autoimmune illnesses, we tend to get another best friend and a third best friend, and they all come as one party crashing into your body. So does that also happen with type 1 diabetes, that once you get,
definitely.
yeah, once you get
Yeah.
that, you can also be exposed to
Yeah,
other.
yeah, definitely. These patients are actually more prone to get other autoimmune diseases. Does not mean that all of them get it, and
Absolutely,
all the diseases doesn't happen, but they
absolutely.
are more prone to get autoimmune thyroiditis, which the incidence for a type 1 diabetic would be somewhere around 8 to 10%. Then they get celiac disease,
Hmm.
which is around 15%. So definitely these kids are going to get more likely to get more autoimmune. Does not mean that all of them will develop all the diseases together. It can be over the whole lifetime, or it will not happen. You don't know. So these patients can get vitiligo, that is, like the people with white skin,
Yes.
yeah, white patchy hypopigmented skin. They can get ulcerative colitis, they can get rheumatoid arthritis, they can get SLE, they can get autoimmune thyroiditis.
It's like going to a party, crashing into a party and saying, I'm going to make so many friends, some of whom you like, some of whom you won't like. And you took that call to go to the party, so now deal with it. This is basically how one should approach it. So I
And so
completely, sorry, you were saying.
no, so I would say that you can't tell those, you can't tell your immune response, please don't affect my skin. You have already affected my pancreas, or you have already affected my joints. You can't say that. But at times they don't want to do it. And so you don't get another autoimmune disease whole life.
Right.
So that's destiny.
Right. As well as there is another thing which we know of autoimmune illnesses, that people tend to get it because of a genetic predisposition. Can you throw some light on that, saying specifically to type 1 diabetes, is there some kind of identified genetic predisposition that a person would have, and they are more susceptible to get this, and simultaneously can it be tested for in advance?
So it's there. There's a gene called HLA-DR3. For these patients get it more often than others.
Right.
But if you have type 1 diabetes, the chances of your kid getting is just 5%.
Correct.
So that's a your sibling getting it is again 5%. I'm talking about they getting type 1 only. But if you're type 1 diabetic and you have a twin, he or she has a 50% chance of getting it. So actually, it is not as common as we think.
Right.
Right? We are not actually, giving it to our children, kids, or the generation together.
Right.
So many times we see the type 1 diabetics with no family history of type 1 diabetes in their families. So it happens. It's somehow the autoimmunity has chosen you.
Chosen you.
That's it.
You're the gifted. Yes.
Right.
I always use this, that I'm the chosen one, I'm the gifted one, I'm special, I'm God's loved child. So that's the reason why I got selected. I generally tend to joke about it like that.
This disease, autoimmune disease, is actually very rare if you compare to hypertension and heart diseases and all.
Yeah.
Hardly 1% of the population gets it.
Right. So this is another difference, I think, between type 1 and type 2. Can we say this is a difference where type 2 is something that can get passed on from one family member to another, whereas type 1 is very rare, and as you shared some statistics earlier, it's a very small percentage that you can pass on to, in a hereditary situation. Type 2 is more commonly passed on, correct?
Definitely. And the type 2 not only has genetic, you can't actually say it's hereditary, but then the whole family is obese, right?
Correct.
The whole family has a bad lifestyle. So you definitely are more prone to it.
Right. We as children growing up, we've always seen that, okay, some certain relative has diabetes. So if it falls into your family line, you should probably just check for it. Keep in mind, once you go into that particular 40 plus age, please keep yourself tested and be aware, informed. So those of us who are slightly more aware, we tend to keep it in the back of our mind, and we tend to test ourselves for it also. But this is because we're talking about the general diabetes that you and I would commonly refer to. As far as autoimmune is concerned, I think the only way to approach it, and you may correct me here, is that your healthcare expert, in terms of a doctor like yourself, is the best person to tell you whether this is autoimmune or not. Because as in general, we can't decide for ourselves. That some XYZ relative has it, now I also have got diabetes, so it is type 1 or type 2. This is very specific. It's not something which happens just like that, and only a healthcare expert can guide you properly on this piece.
Definitely. And it's actually more common in less than 40 years of age. So if I get a patient with diabetes who is less than 40, and I would get some antibodies done. And these antibodies, if they are positive, they will indicate to me that this patient is actually type 1 diabetic and will require only insulin and no oral medications for them.
Correct. Right. So you touched upon this now, that you touched upon two things. We spoke about getting tested for it. What kind of tests does one need to do, and are they really expensive for a patient to manage this kind of testing and find out for themselves if they are type 1 diabetes?
No, the patients need not find out for themselves.
Yeah,
the doctor has to order those tests. They are definitely expensive. Anti-GAD antibodies and anti-islet cell antibodies.
Right.
Yes, and they are not easily available in all the small towns also. But then I think a patient with type 1 diabetes will definitely go to a doctor where everything is available in a bigger place, in a bigger center once they are diagnosed. And they have to be done once in the lifetime. You don't need to keep on repeating them.
Exactly.
You just do them and know whether your patient, for some specific, for the young child who comes at the age of 4 to 7 years, or in the teenage, the two age where we see it more often between 13 to 16, you already know this is going to be type 1.
Right.
What you say holds true mostly for the cases which are between the age of 20 to 40. They are still not old enough, and they are still getting it.
Right.
So that is where you need to do these antibody tests. Right. And would like to divide, because you would know how to treat this, whether you would like to give oral medications, because insulin prick is the biggest problem with all the patients all over the world.
Yeah. Right? I was just about to lead to that the common fear that we have when we hear about diabetes is, will I have to prick myself every day, or will I have to self-inject every day? What is the line of treatment typically that a type 1 diabetes patient has to administer, and what kind of medicines? Are they oral or are they injectables?
So in the treatment plan, we actually start with diet. Diet is always first.
Yeah.
The advises it, and regular lifestyle, eating habits, your regular exercise. If you take care of this much, 10% of your sugar can be well controlled with just this much. For the rest of in type 1 diabetes, and since I told you initially only, the problem is your body is not making insulin.
Correct.
So the logical explanation is you have to give insulin. There is no tablet available for it. And unfortunately, these kids have to prick themselves 3 to 4 times a day before breakfast, lunch, dinner, and maybe most of the times bedtime also. So, but the thing is, now we have much better injections available. We have a ballpoint like a pen, which you can carry around and you can inject yourself. These are cheaper also, very easily affordable by the middle class too, and even the lower class.
Right.
So, I have quite a few patients from villages who inject themselves daily and have been doing it for years.
Hmm.
To the more affluent, there is something called insulin pumps. They apply that on your body, and there are different types of insulin pumps also. So they detect the sugars and insulin injected on its own, or they detect the sugars, tell you, and there is a mechanism here, and you inject it, you
Naturally
press
do.
it, 10 units required, you press it button and it goes in. But that is very expensive, very prohibitive, almost 4 lakhs per month. I think most of the kids can't afford it till now, but maybe we will see in future. Things are getting cheaper with the competitions and competition around.
Yes. So, so for type 1 diabetes, I think a few things that really pose more rather than the lifestyle and the diet, which you say is easier to manage. I think the fear of the way the medication and the repeat number of times the medication needs to be monitored is generally what tends to give a fear to patients rather than, controlling the sugar or bringing about exercise, because that is in habit. So thank you for covering that, because we in autoimmune illnesses, there are some that diet really does not add any value, as well as there are others that diet can prove to be a big changing component to the not only the lifestyle but the overall health of a person. In this case, again, like in another example, diabetes and sugar can be controlled, can be managed with diet and exercise. And you, I think, threw great light on it, saying that if one has a regime, one can build a lifestyle where it doesn't have to be that you have to take higher dose of medicine. If you can manage a good diet, healthy amount of exercise, and take the specified insulin necessary for you, life can go on in a normal way in continuity, right? So
Right.
that's really good. There is another illness which you mentioned earlier, like celiac, which immediately associates itself to gluten in the diet, and once you eliminate that, generally we understand that the illness can be better managed. How does so you gave us a story about this teenager. Can you maybe throw some light as to, in general, other type of patients, how do they respond when you tell them that this is type 1 and this is a very serious thing and one needs to sort of live with it for the rest of your life? How do your patients respond? Are they positive? Do they get scared? How do you handle that, please?
In India, to accept any disease
Yeah.
is not possible. I think even if I tell my patient you have simple hypertension, they don't like it. So
Yeah.
to tell them you have type 1 diabetes, and
Yeah.
I actually never say it's a serious disease, because I feel they already feel they are already depressed. You don't want to add on to it.
Mm.
You actually, that is my favorite line of those 4 5 celebrities that I keep on telling to my type 1 diabetic. The first time I meet them and counsel them, I always name these 3 4 people, and that's when they start thinking, they'll start correlating these people can do so much, we will be able to manage it.
Right.
The only problem comes is when you tell them that you will have to take insulin 3 4 times a day, and these are kids going to school, they are active, some are into games. That's when it really hits them.
Yeah.
But what I see is most of the time kids actually accept it easier than the parents.
Mm.
Parents will come back alone without the kid, ask you, will the married life will be fine? Will
Yeah.
this kid do this? Will the pregnancy happen? They will keep on calling and doing it. And I have to tell them that if you don't ask so many questions in front of your child, that would be good for you. Let the child come up with the questions if he or she wants to do it. But don't pester him. There is much more to life than his type 1 diabetes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Give them a normal life, and you just have to make them understand that you have to take insulin and you have to take your food regularly,
Mm.
and the diet plan that we say has to be done regularly. That's it.
Right. So the concern of the parents becomes a larger concern for you to deal with rather than the actual patient most of the time in this case, because I feel that children also have a greater resilience, the way of sorts to accept things. As we grow older, I think our resilience as well as the capacity to adapt to new situations, we lose that part of our personality. Uh, so you talked about exercise and sports people and children. You say can go and have a completely normal life and a well exercised regime also. Now this leads me to appreciate that a person does not have to lead a compromised life along with type 1 diabetes, and that's a beautiful thing to understand from this session. uh, Speaking of a compromised life, today we are all in this situation. Either we're working from home or we are limited to a very small environment and permitted only to go to a few places. Do type 1 diabetes patients have to take extra care with COVID-19 and the pandemic, which is has been around for some time now and is going to be around for some time? How susceptible are type 1 diabetes patients, and do they need to take extra care, or it's just the general that all of us are taking?
No extra care actually. It's general. You should not get the infection first thing. But once you get the infection, they will have more problems. Because not only for the COVID, for any infection.
Right.
For routine pneumonia, flu, if you have type 1 diabetes, it can turn into a severe infection any day. And very fast if your glycemia is not controlled. So what we tell our patient is for any diabetics, whether it's a type 1 or type 2 diabetic, the sugars should be well controlled. First thing, if they are well controlled, your chances of getting an infection are definitely low. Any infection I'm talking about. For COVID, the same thing stays for every one of us. That is, wear mask and wear it rightly. Till your nose. Don't pull it down when you talk. So do that. Wear your mask, hand hygiene, and 6 feet different distance, social distance.
Yeah.
Right. So that stays for all of us. But once they get it, the chance of severity, if the glycemia is well controlled, is going to be little less. But if the sugars are not well controlled, it can go into a moderate to severe cases. And actually, it's very interesting to know in COVID, the patients who had never had diabetes started developing diabetes after getting COVID disease, because coronavirus also causes inflammation of the pancreas.
Right.
So now the guideline all over the world is, because we started noticing it, is that in all coronavirus patients, whatever the age they are in, please check the sugars.
For sugar, yeah.
Right. And now, since if they get the disease, and they usually, if this glycemia is not well controlled, that glycemia is sugar values. If the sugar values are not very well controlled, these go into moderate to severe cases. The treatment is steroids. And as we all know, steroids cause insulin resistance. So if you are already diabetic, your sugars will still go on high and you will require a lot more insulin that you are on. And most of the diabetics, if it's a very long duration diabetic, not very well controlled, might have some kidney problem, diabetic nephropathy with it. They might have some underlying cardiovascular problem, that is, they might be having a heart attack, hypertension. So because of the associated comorbidities in these patients, we are seeing actually higher mortality. So there's almost a mortality rate in diabetics is almost turning around to be between 8 to 15% in India in different states. While the routine patient, the mortality rate is between 1 to 2%.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So while we can appreciate that there is no specific additional things that we have to do, just the knowledge and the understanding that it puts a type 1 diabetes or a regular diabetes patient in slightly a more exposed, vulnerable situation, because once you get COVID, it is a catch-22 situation, because then there are steroids and then there is other things, and your sugar levels and so many things that you explained get affected. So it's not necessarily the autoimmune illness which is causing a greater problem, but the impact of you being a compromised immune system because of the medicines that you need to take is making you more vulnerable. So
Many of my patients, diabetic patients, have done very well in coronavirus.
Right.
They have got the disease, stayed in home quarantine, and come out of it. But
Absolutely.
these are all those patients whose sugars were very well controlled at the baseline.
Yes.
So if your sugars are not controlled, whether you are type 1, type 2, or you get a new diabetes during COVID, you are more prone to severe disease.
Yeah. So that's what they generally say, like seniors or elderly people should take a little extra precaution, because I guess that comes from the general understanding and perception that the sugar is definitely a compromised situation. So once you get older, it is better to stay and stick inside your house, because you will become more susceptible and vulnerable. So this is a very interesting thing that you did bring out, and thank you for doing so, because it just sheds light as to how something can go, early very fast, and it's not necessarily, that it will go that way. As you rightly said, so many patients have done well, even though they are diabetic patients. So there is no thumb rule again to this situation, but the learning, I think, is if you already have an existing illness, it is just better to be on the slightly safer side, because there are so many other elements that get affected that might put you in a more compromising situation. Um, so COVID-19 is something that is a new thing. Where do you see diabetes going in the future in India, and as far as management of the illness, diagnose of the illness, being able to reach out to more people? Where do you see the future of diabetes management or as an illness in India?
I think we are starting to have more support groups also in India, which were not there almost 15, 20 years back. More than that, they have actually in the management, because for type 1 diabetes, especially for type 2, we have almost 10, 12 different class of drugs available. So we have lots of options. But
Yes.
for type 1 diabetes, and the problem is the prick. So world over, they started using nasal insulin.
Mm-hmm.
The trials showed very erratic absorption, and it was not found to be good, but the trials are still on for that. I think in future, maybe the insulin pumps will become more feasible, more, compatible. The way that our phones have evolved all over the years, I'm sure this insulin pump will become cheaper and will be easily available to our poor diabetic patients. They have to take so many insulin. Pricks would not be needed, and they can continue with their life. Just putting a small bracelet, the way we put our Apple Watch, it's just like that.
Yes.
Again, there's something called CGM, that is continuous glucose monitoring. There is a device, they put a chip on your shoulder. I usually do it for my labile patients. They get hypos at times, and then they get high sugars at times. You don't know what's happening in their body. So you put a chip on their shoulder, and it keeps on recording the sugars every 15 minutes for 14 days. And then once you remove it, you can get the readings all over for 15 minutes reading for last 14 days, and what he ate, what he did, and how much the sugar behaved, what happened. It's very good to monitor this way, so that you can actually treat the patient accordingly. So that is another new thing which has come in for last 5 years. Now we have been using it. Transplant.
Yeah.
So the thing that I kept on saying, the beta cell of pancreas. So there is something called islet cell transplant. It's being done and has been done in more so in US than in India, but it's usually done in type 1 diabetics with very bad kidneys, where there is severe diabetic nephropathy, where the kidneys have been affected. So when you are doing a renal transplant, kidney transplant, along with that you do islet cell transplant, that is pancreatic transplant. Solo pancreatic transplant is not being done. It hasn't found to be so useful till now, but I'm sure in another 20, 30 years, we will see it more often. And more than that, I think somewhere along that genetic therapy, gene therapy will come over. Maybe in our lifetime, I'm not sure about that. But then they will start when the kid is born, they will find out, the way we have that horoscope, they will have a gene scope or something that's gene, and they will start acting their own self.
Yes.
You start the genes and you start have targeted therapy. I don't know, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know. That might be the future.
Yeah, this gene therapy is interesting that you mentioned that.
Excuse me, the targeted gene therapy that I've been talking is being used at present in
Yes,
certain cancers.
yes, yes.
We are hoping that we will able to replicate the same thing in diabetes, but I don't think it's going to happen in another 30, 40 years. But it will happen.
Right.
It will definitely.
So it's amazing how there are, you mentioned there's so much scope for the possibility and hope associated with so many tools that are being researched for this specific diabetes illness. As far as external tools, monitoring tools, being able to generate database and information so that you can provide a better, management of the illness. Because I feel that's the first thing. If we can manage the illness better, it brings about a social, cultural, and such an exponential change that people will no longer fear it and they will accept it, they'll know how to manage it, and overall, people can live a better life. As far as this gene therapy is concerned, you rightly mentioned that there are so many. It's being done for cancer. There are some illnesses that, like I myself, have tested for that gene therapy, and they gave me a lot of information which as a normal person I would not be able to decipher, but they did tell me what you're susceptible to, which components of food you are more sensitive to or should not be eating. So it's a huge study that they gave. I participated in it one out of curiosity to understand how my body is. So it basically it's trying to understand your own body, what my body is
Right.
saying, where I stand. Less than it was not about trying to find a solution, because I don't think in many illnesses solutions are there yet. But there is a lot of work that is being done, and there is the hope that in that there'll be a way forward very quickly, and hopefully in our lifetime we can just pray. You spoke rightly about support groups. So as culturally Indians, we are not somebody who can easily say, I have type 1 diabetes, or I have this, or I have that. We don't hold a badge, on our forehead or around our neck and say that we are a patient and we are living with this. So, uh, do you feel that, and do you recommend to your patients also at some point to go and be a part of such support groups or communities that can help them? And why do you feel that would be a good thing for them as patients?
Support groups, I think, are a necessity in any chronic disease, not only type 1 diabetes. It can be any chronic disease. It can be actually heart attack to hypertension to every chronic disease. Because once you tell them you have to do it daily, it actually causes some sort of depression somewhere in the, there is some mental block to it. But once you come to know these many people have it and they are doing so good in life, you get inspired to reach that level. For me, I think I heard of support group way back for the first time for type 1 diabetes in 1999 when I was at SGPGI. My teachers, Dr. Ish Bhatia and Dr. Vijay Lakshmi Bhatia, are both a couple who are endocrinologists. Madam is a pediatric endocrinologist, and she actually deals with type 1 diabetics a lot more than the rest of us do. So they had started the support group way back then. That was the only support group that I was aware of in the whole of India.
Wow.
And they would do activities for them, educate the family, involve the family, and there was a difference. And so in and around Lucknow, many of the kids were from the villages. The poor kids had no idea about diabetes, diabetes,
Yes.
right? So to educate them, to make them understand, it was a huge endeavor that they took up, and it's still going on. And I think now we are seeing support groups in all other diseases also, all other autoimmune chronic diseases also. In Ahmedabad also we have a support group for type 1 diabetics, and I do tell my patients to go there. Many go, most don't, but that's okay. You can't expect somebody to, you tell them this, you're suffering from this disease, and expect them to understand and accept the disease and everything to happen within a month or two.
Exactly.
It takes years.
It takes you.
It takes time. Give them time. So just support them. If they want anything, you are always there for them. And I have seen most of my patients do well. So that stigma of type 1 is not so there anymore.
Right.
Because diabetes is so prevalent in India. How can you have a stigma?
Yes.
Every third person is a diabetic. So it's in Gujarat, we're more so.
Absolutely. Gujaratis are very healthy, sweet people. So they tend to get
They
sweet.
have absolutely, not that the people are exercising, I should not say that, but otherwise it's a laid back life, right?
Yes. More relaxed, a very relaxed life in Gujarat also. So it's interesting to know that you do encourage your patients, and since so long, the concept of building communities or building support groups has already been there for so many years. And it's wonderful that you encourage your patients to find such support outside of family. What we are trying to do here is that we realize that family can understand that you have this problem, but I believe strongly that a person who has the same thing like you do can throw so much more light and be able to understand what you are going through as with a specific illness more than your family. Your family and friends are an amazing support group. You can't do without them. You need their support to manage this illness better, 100%. But to be able to participate in a community or a support group uh, gives you a sense of belonging. It gives you also inspiring, motivation that see this person is there. He has this for so many years, and he's doing fine. His life has changed, but he's doing so much better, and he is successful professional. He nothing has stopped him from achieving his goals in life. He has a family. So when you see a live example of somebody, it changes it. It changes your perspective completely
Yeah,
changes.
yeah.
You look at your own self rather than pitying yourself about being part of a situation. You suddenly realize that, oh, okay, I have this companion for life, but it doesn't mean that I can't enjoy it or make it a positive element of my life. uh,
Okay.
I'm so glad we did this session today with you because, as I mentioned earlier, also, I have always come back running to you whenever there is a small or large problem that I have faced. And you have been a great guiding force. As well as I remember you having encouraged me to, talk to someone also. That if you are, facing some mental or emotional challenges, why don't you reach out to, and you had referred me to another doctor as well to get that kind of support. I just wish and hope that you continue to.
Before we stop, but I would just like to add one small thing, a small message for type 1 diabetics. There is a company which makes insulin, is a pioneer of making insulin, Nova.
Yes.
And those people are so good in the sense for type 1 diabetics who are poor, who can't afford 3 to 4 injections per day, they
Mm.
provide them free injections.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
Amazing.
just that the doctor has to contact that company and tell them this is my poor patient and she is not able to afford it. Please give him free, and they do it for years together till that person is capable of earning on their own. That
Wow.
is called Novo Nordisk company, and I think we should mention it so that the type 1 diabetics all over India know it, and they can contact their doctor to contact that company to give them injections if
Absolutely.
needed.
Absolutely. This is an amazing thing that this company is doing. I think the human touch which is required to and the focus to help a person rather than just focusing on the commercial aspect of it. But I feel that if large companies start accepting their social responsibility and the fact that they have to give back to society, these small gestures can go such a long way in not only building their company but generally uplifting people with who are struggling with such limitations, because it's not the person's fault that he or she got diagnosed, right? But it is something that they have to manage with now, rather than being limited and probably losing their life in the long run to this illness. Why not reach out to a company like this? It's really amazing that they're able to give such kind of support. It's a beautiful thing that they're doing. And obviously all doctors should, and the patients also should be aware and reach out and talk and reach out. Yeah. Nova, you said, right?
Novo Nordisk.
No. Okay. Perfect. Great. So to wind up our session today, I've taken, I think, more than the scheduled time that I had requested from you. I'd like to thank you sincerely from my heart for your time and the fact that you've taken interest in this little part of our journey that I'm trying to do. I hope that I can come back to you in the future for maybe another session with, another illness. And I just like to say that this community is focused on bringing people with autoimmune illnesses together so that they can connect uh, with each other, they can share their updates and inspire each other with their journeys. That's the most important thing. Give a sense of belonging to people like me and others who need to know that there are other people and it's not so bad. Do not define yourself by this illness. Do not allow it to change you. It will change your life, but it cannot change you. So accept the illness, take a positive lesson from it, reach out to other people who are doing well and managing life well with this illness, and focus on the fact that life can be as beautiful as it can be. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe our channel on YouTube. Thank you once again, Dr. Shalini, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you, Neetu. Take care.
Bye bye.